Hi there. Thank you for joining our live stream today. So glad you're here. My name is Amanda, and today we're going to be going over a handful of poses that will help us understand how to incorporate props into our practice so that our practice is more well-rounded and mindful of prop utilization, creating inclusive cueing and options, as well as just exploring creative ways to play with prop utilization. I do this once a week, a detailed pose breakdown. I'll pose with no prop, a pose with a traditional prop like a block, and a pose with a non-traditional prop like a triangle. Our first pose that we're going to be reviewing today is bridge pose. Let this serve as a disclaimer that the poses that we're going over are not sequenced in any particular order. However, all of the poses that we're going over in this sequence tonight are going to be really nice for hip releases, and just generally speaking, the lower half of the body. Okay, so you'll need a couple of blocks, and if you have any other props that you want to explore incorporating, you're welcome to use those as well. I have a pair of yoga triangles here that I'll be showing you how to use. So the first pose that we're going to go over is bridge pose. Bridge pose is a really great pose for opening up the small part of the back. It is a beginner-friendly inversion, and it's also excellent for increasing blood flow and has a naturally calming effect. So we'll go over bridge pose. To come into bridge pose, you'll come into an inverted tabletop position, glide your bottom towards your heels, and lower down one elbow at a time, one shoulder at a time. Reach for your feet and draw them in close to you. Typically, fingers coming close to touching the heels is a good general placement for the feet. From here, you'll play with lifting the small part of your back and pressing the small part of your back into the ground. So lifting or tilting the bowl of the pelvis toward the feet, and then doing the opposite movement, drawing the bowl of the pelvis toward the ribs. Away toward the feet, back toward the ribs. Keep the pelvis tilted back toward the ribs. You can use your hands and the strength of your arms here to press into the mat and lift your body away from the mat, coming into bridge. This is going to help create some strength in the glutes and the back body, and it also will help you create some strength in the small part of your back. You can use your hands to help stabilize here. You can also bring your fingers together underneath you and push your hands into the mat to provide additional stabilization. Other options include using your hands to help keep your back body lifted. After a few breaths, lower yourself back down. I like to roll the spine back down when I come out of this variation. And we'll do that one more time. Press your fingers into the mat. Take an exhale and begin to roll the spine up and away from the floor. Might be able to lift a little higher this time. Take an inhale, and on the exhale, roll the spine back down to the floor. So we're starting with the upper back, lowering down one bone at a time until the tailbone touches down. From here, you can roll over onto your side and make your way upright to seated. Bridge pose with a block, or two blocks, one or two. I like two. So we'll come into the same traditional position. lowering into this reverse tabletop, one elbow at a time, one shoulder at a time. Using the fingers to locate the feet. And then bringing your blocks to either side of the hips. Pressing into your feet on the exhale, peeling yourself up and sliding the blocks together underneath you. We want to make sure that the bones in your back body are supported, not the base of the spine, closer to the tailbone so that there's not any unnecessary pulling on the base of the spine. So this is a supported bridge, very relaxing variation, incredibly different from the engaged variation where you're pressing and lifting yourself up off the blocks. A nice variation to do with the blocks if you're interested in more of just the opening without all of the engagement, especially at the end of the day or a very long day. Another nice option in this variation with blocks is to press up a little higher and tilt the blocks up higher. Depending on your individual body's needs, you might need to move the blocks up or down a little to feel stable here. If this doesn't feel comfortable for you for any number of reasons, you don't have to go higher. Another nice option in lieu of this position, where your block is set at the second highest setting, is to stack your blocks one on top of the other. That's definitely a bigger back bend and not nearly as comfortable. You can also see that my chin is drawing into my throat, making it a little more challenging for me to breathe or talk. This is something that you might want to take into consideration if it's not comfortable for you. Again, listen to your body. I'm going to go ahead and come out of this. Roll over onto your side, come upright. And let's explore another variation of bridge with triangles. So this is a pretty cool variation, a little different than what you're used to seeing. We'll have to discuss some of the options with the triangles here. But this is a myofascial release that I'm quite fond of with triangles. So same thing, you set up for your traditional bridge. And you want to have the triangles on either side of your hips, but closer to the glutes. And you want to have the short angle pointed in toward the hips. And from here, you'll press up and you'll slide the triangles to right underneath your glutes. And there you get a nice glute trigger point myofascial release. You can play with lifting one leg or the other or both, or extending the legs out and away from you. If you want a more traditional variation of bridge pose here, you can also turn the triangles to flat on their sides and bring them underneath the glutes here as well. Again, point or peak of triangle up, glute release, or flat on their sides with the balance landmark pointed toward your head for a more supported traditional bridge variation. And then the last variation that you can play with in bridge with the triangles is creating the diamond shape. So I'm going to lower down here for a moment. If I bring my two triangles together and I make this diamond shape, I can take the diamond and place it underneath my tailbone. And I have support all the way up to the small part of my back is all the way down toward my tailbone itself. And this feels really nice in terms of if I have any discomfort in the low back, support for the low back bones, it's definitely there. You have a little more coverage here. You also have some space for the glutes to spill off the sides, but it does feel supported. So last option for a bridge with a triangle. To get out of this, you'll just press up, remove triangles, lower down, and roll over onto your side and make your way up to seated. The next variation that we're going to go over today is butterfly pose. So for butterfly pose, without props, traditional pose that allows you to open your hips. You'll bring the soles of the feet together. Your heels can be close to your hips or far away from your hips. Depending on how tight your hips are, your feet might be very close or further away. You don't have to overthink this, just listen to your body, do what feels best for you. If you bring your heels in closer, you will find that this brings more of a deep opening and sensation for the groin and the hips. So this is your butterfly pose. You can add a forward fold into this variation to make the sensation a little more pronounced. You can also press your elbows down into the hip bones to encourage that as well. Butterfly pose, pretty fundamental pose for hip opening. We can add blocks to this variation. They just slide right underneath the knees. Now, why would I want to do this? Well, you want to have engagement in the muscles. You might be thinking that you want your knees to touch the ground, but if you can bring your knees to the ground, you're probably pretty flexible, in which case it would make sense for you to focus on creating a little more stability in the joint and strength in the muscle. And so by placing a prop underneath the knee and in between the fold of the leg and the ground, you can actually use reciprocal inhibition or antagonist synergist muscle group relationship to dynamically activate the muscles in your body. And so in a roundabout way, you know that your joints are stabilized because you can feel the muscles engaged, supporting the joint tissue around the knee. So make sure that you have the blocks far enough in there to where when you press down, you can feel the muscular engagement, and then you can forward fold here. And don't be surprised when you start playing with reciprocal inhibition or PNF stretching, that your stretches actually will deepen here, because when one antagonist muscle turns on and another releases, you get more extension in other muscular groups. That's just the nature of the antagonist synergist muscle group relationship. To add triangles to this variation, same thing here, but what you'll find is that the triangle slides in underneath the calves or the thighs or the glutes, and it just fits. It feels much better. You have a little more control over the placement of the prop. This allows you to go deeper again into the fold. It feels almost like it was designed to fit your body here. And depending on, if you still want to have the range of motion to create flexibility, but know that the joint is stabilized, you can pull the triangles further out, as far out as you want to take them, to know that the joint is engaged and you're still getting those deep reciprocal inhibition muscular activations. So butterfly with the triangle. And the last variation that we're going to go over tonight before I send you guys on your way. We'll see you again next Tuesday, but the last variation we'll be reviewing is Happy Baby, another lovely hip opener. So I'll come back into same position for bridge, reclining back into that tabletop position and lowering down, one elbow at a time, one shoulder at a time. Walking the heels in, reaching for the heels, and then lifting the knees up. From here, the knees separate and the feet toward the sky. And there's any number of ways you can reach in and grab for your big toes. You can grab for the bony edges of your feet, or you can just hold on to whatever is available to you. And this is Happy Baby. If you pull with the hands to draw the knees closer to the ground, you can feel the way that the low back and the hips open in this variation, and you can add some movement here. Of course, remembering to breathe. Happy Baby pose. Go ahead and close the knees, roll over onto your side, and come upright. How would we use blocks in this variation? Well, I'm glad you asked. So we'll come back into that reclining position. This bridge position we keep on revisiting. Knees up, knees open, heels open. You can play with placing the blocks underneath the knees so you have something to pull the knees down onto. And again, we're exploring that PNF muscular activation. So you know the joints are stable. You pull the knees down and you push the heels into your hands. You might actually feel your glutes lift slightly away from the floor here, and that's going to release the hips and the low back. And lots of other muscular engagements and connections are happening here. So that's a fun variation. Releasing. You can drop the blocks lower if you have this available to you, given your flexibility. Same thing here. Okay. Remove the blocks, roll over onto your side. Come upright, and let's play with triangles. This is one of my favorite variations with triangles, because if you can't get yourself close to the mat in Happy Baby, this unique prop gives us a tilt in the tailbone that allows us to go a little further back. So similar to a bridge here, but I'm going to slide the triangles underneath at an angle, the sides of the glutes, so that when I tilt back into Happy Baby, I can move the triangles, you can see here, to underneath the sides of my glutes. I sink them back in there, and this allows me to get my knees a little closer to the ground, opens my hips a little more. I get more of a tilt in the tailbone, and you know, I could get real crazy here and put some blocks under my knees in this variation too, in addition to getting the release in the small part of my back, and also get the reciprocal inhibition at the top. So lots of ways to incorporate props to make these variations more accessible or inclusive for people who are practicing based upon their needs. I hope that this has been a fun and curious experience for you. I welcome your questions, comments, and feedback. And I will be back again. I'll be back Saturday, and I'll be back Tuesday. Thank you guys so much for watching these videos. Tuesdays I go live. Saturdays I record the stream and push it later in the day. If you want to learn more about the Yoga Triangle, you can visit theyogatriangle.com. Thank you for subscribing to our YouTube, and I hope you have a great day.